Get yourself ready for an interdimensional sensory experience. Welcome all to the dimension of sci-fi, fantasy, and horror. This is the 5D Podcast.
So hello there and welcome to the 5D Podcast, brought to you by Stuart and Zack from 5d-blog.com. If you're listening to us live on Twitch TV/5dblog, then welcome. And of course, welcome to those of you on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn and Stitcher. Be sure to check out the 5d-blog.com website for blog articles, competitions and news. And of course, check out the 5D YouTube channel, the details for which can be found on the website. Hi, Zack.
Hello.
Hi. Yes.
We have something a little bit special today.
We do.
A little bit of a podcast special. Now, normally I'm not actually allowed to be here for the specials because I've got a tendency to turn into a bit of a teenage girl when it comes to celebrities. But due to the stature of our guest today, I can't really trust you to stream it properly. So here I am.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to?
Well, yeah, I mean,
do the honor?
we are delighted, and we are genuinely going to be sort of fanboys here. I'm sorry, we are going to be fanboys. So we've got something a bit special. We've got actor, musician, photographer. In fact, he is a little bit annoyingly too talented for my liking, but, you know, there you go. He's also maybe only about a year or so older than me, if I can say that, which, if you put the two of us together, that people would not believe that at all. I mean,
I lost you there.
He looks great. You're back. You're here. Yep. So let me just read a very quick bit of the Wikipedia. So born in 1965, is actor, musician. Started out as lead guitarist for melodic bands Urgent and Diving for Pearls. As an actor, Runaway Bride, Bad Boys 2, War of the Worlds, American Gangster, A-Team, Captain Phillips. Currently in a fabulous series, which we are a bit obsessed with, HBO series adaptation of the Stephen King novel The Outsider. We've got Yul Vasquez, I apologise, on the show. How you doing, man? How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm good, man. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you.
It is a pleasure. I want to talk about The Outsider. I mean, obviously, it's a thing that's kind of happening for us at the moment. And your IMDb page goes on forever anyway. Geez, it's just, takes a while to take it all in. Can we talk about the music first, though? Can we start with that?
Talk about anything you want, man.
All right. So I didn't know, until I did a bit of research, I didn't know that you were a lead guitarist for a couple of bands, or a few bands back in the 80s. So, I mean, how do you look back on those? Because I've looked at some of this stuff, and we shared a very similar hairstyle, I must admit, for particularly, I think, in the Diving for Pearls, we had very similar sort of permed hair kind of sort of thing. How do you look back on those days as in the music industry?
Man, it was a very different industry then.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't make a record in your basement. You can make a record in your bedroom now. So, I mean, it's an odd journey for me, man. I acted as a little kid because my mother was an actress, and we came from Cuba. My mother joined a theater company in Miami comprised of exiled Cuban actors, and then I was the default kid. They would throw me in these plays, but I never wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be Jimmy Page. All my heroes. It was paradoxical because I was this Cuban kid, and all my heroes were British guitar players, and it was kind of an amazing thing. I would listen to Jimmy Page and Brian May and Richie Blackmore and Bill Nelson from Bebop Deluxe, who a band probably nobody fucking remembers. No, but that's what I did. I mean, I played in bands, and I started playing in bands in Miami, and then came to New York, auditioned for Urgent, got that job. They hired me, and then I became the guitar player in that band for 2 records. But I had known I was already really, really good friends with Rob Halford from Judas Priest, and in fact that's how we get Tom Allom. Tom Allom produces the second Urgent record, who produced every Judas Priest record, and is Factoid, the engineer on the very first Black Sabbath record.
Wow.
But Tom and I were friends because I knew Tom because I knew Rob and Glenn and Ken and all those guys, and he came and did the our second record, which was probably my favorite experience I've ever had making a record.
Yeah.
Because I was working with a proper guitar producer. You know what I mean? And then I just sort of did that, and then Urgent. We did the records, we played, we did all, and then it got, we got dropped. EMI basically dropped us, and then I was in New York, and then I joined a band called Diving for Pearls, and then that band got signed to Epic, and then we did one record, and then the music business changed dramatically, a lot of that sort of music, which was not really the music that I really sort of loved.
Yeah.
These bands were great opportunities for me to play guitar in these new sort of environments. But I always came from a much heavier background.
Yeah.
And music business was changing, and Diving for Pearls got dropped from Epic, and we were writing and trying to get another deal.
Yeah.
When the lead singer's girlfriend worked for a talent agency in New York City, and Oliver Stone was casting a film about the Doors, and I had very long hair, and she said, hey, you should come in and because I used to talk about acting with her all the time because I knew she was talented. Because I always loved acting. And another thing you should know is my grandmother worked at the box office for a movie theater for 35 years.
Wow.
So it's crazy. So my grandma would come. I was a little kid. She'd tell me about all these. She said, this guy, and she used to say to me, you look like Montgomery Clift and Tyrone Power, which I had no idea who the fuck they were. I was like, yeah, but I don't look like Jimmy Page. That's what I want to look like. You know what I mean? I go meet her boss, and this woman, Holly Levitt, who is changes the course of my life in a big way, actually. So woman who deserves a lot of credit. And I go meet with her. She's like, literally looks at me like, hey man, dude, I don't know if you can act, but you're fun and you're kind of interesting, and I'll be your agent. And they send me in on this audition for the Doors.
Yeah.
Which I don't get, but I meet Billy Hopkins, who was a casting director for that movie, who was a very, very influential casting director in here in the States. And next thing I know, he's got another movie called The Mambo Kings, and I go audition for that, and I wind up getting that, and then they cut all my hair off, and I haven't been in a band since then, man.
What was it like cutting the hair off? Because I remember I generally had the hair. I mean, I was like, I was a rock fan and a hippie and all this stuff back in the day. But I can remember the day I had it cut off, and it was, I knew I had to make a change. But for me, it was like I thought I'd lost part of my life, that part of my personality. Yeah. It was like real weird. What part in the Doors did you go for? Can I ask? Are you allowed to say?
Which part in what, in Mambo Kings?
No, in the Doors. What part did you audition for the Doors film that you didn't get? Did you say?
It was like they wanted to see people to be like in the band, in the Doors band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Val Kilmer was already playing Jim Morrison,
and he was great, wasn't he? That was a great part.
Great.
Yeah.
It's funny because I wind up working with Val Kilmer years later, and not that long ago, on a film called The Super.
Yeah.
So it was a meeting of, like, they wanted to meet people. They wanted people with musical backgrounds. It was kind of like, it was kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I literally just went and I met with Billy Hopkins. We just like, and he just he seemed to like me, and he remembered me, and I read, I don't know what, I had some sides, I read something, I don't even know, I don't remember what it was. It was a very long time ago, obviously, but and then, but then I started I started to study with a teacher here in New York, another person that changes my life, is a man called Bill Esper. Again, Holly Levitt arranged for me to meet Bill, and then I start studying at Bill Esper's studio.
Yeah.
And that changed. Again, I had long hair, and Bill liked people that came from other disciplines, that understood what rehearsing and what hard work was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if you're in a band, that's what you got to do. So, and I was a guy, I played, I was literally just playing. I was playing right before I got on the phone with you guys. I have 2 guitars out right here. I have guitars everywhere. I mean,
I saw some of the Instagram posts of you playing.
Sorry?
I saw some of the Instagram posts that you put up of you playing. Oof, still got it.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks, man. I mean, that's like, I've become friends with these guys who build pedals, these really amazing boutique pedal builders, and I just buy pedals from them, and I just make these Instagram videos just for shits and giggles, because these guys, these guys are working in like one man operations.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I try and give them as much, promotion as I can, because they deserve it, and they're making amazing. I mean, the world now of boutique guitars and amplifiers and pedals is a whole different jam, man. It's amazing, actually.
So you've had the career, obviously, the acting career, which is no mean feat in terms of just changing, kind of pretty quickly. Yeah. But if I was to say to you, right, you can go back in time, you're going to get that second album deal with Diving for Pearls, you're going to get world domination, you're going to be that rock god.
Can you ask that again? I lost you.
You just say, yeah, I could. If you go back in time, 20 years, 30 years ago, you're going to get that second album deal for Diving for Pearls. You're going to be that rock god. So what would it be, rock god or the actor that you are now? What if you could go back? What would you choose?
I wouldn't go back, man.
No,
I don't believe in. I'll tell you something, Stuart. I don't believe in that. I believe in that. The fucking road is kind of written, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's kind of written, and you can make certain. There's a little wiggle room, you know what I mean? But you're gonna go on this journey, you know what I mean? And I got to be very honest with you. I would be in a band again. In fact, I did something a few years ago. I played with Ian Asbury from the Cult.
Yeah. I've read about that. Yeah, I read about that.
And I did something. I would be in a band again. I would play, but being in a band is no fucking fun. I mean, dealing with all those guys and their shit, man. Acting. Listen, acting is a tough life.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you but I pretty much can sort of just deal with me and agents, and when I go to work, I don't have to. Yeah, it's a different sort of collaboration, but I wouldn't change anything, man. I don't,
Well, that's good.
I don't look back, man.
That's good. Well, that's that's an interesting sort of way to look at it, because obviously, you had the chance of music, and at the time I can imagine, it was maybe such a huge disappointment, but that you got past that pretty quickly. Did you see the film, the Motley Crue film, The Dirts? What was it, about a year or so ago?
I did see it. Yeah.
What did you think of it? Was that a fair reflection? And you don't have to incriminate yourself. I'm not asking you. But was it kind of like a? Did you think it was a fair reflection of the scene at the time?
I mean, I don't know if that. I don't know their scene. I thought the film was kind of silly.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest with you, I thought I liked some parts of it. I found it I found it incredibly farcical, but maybe their scene was that farcical. You know what I mean? I don't know. But I do remember buying the very first Motley Crue record that was on their label. It was on Leather Records.
Right.
That record, to me, the very, very early days of that band, they were onto something.
Yeah.
And something gets lost along the way, I think.
I saw them.
But just my opinion.
I saw them back in 80. I don't know, 83 or 84. They were over here at the Donington Rock Festival, and Van Halen, and this was, I think, David Lee Roth's final performance or near there. And Motley Crue had just started to make a name for themselves, and they stole the show. They were great that day. They absolutely stole it. But then I think.
Sounds like the stories of the stories of Van Halen supporting Black Sabbath on the last Sabbath tour. They were just wiping the floor.
Yeah.
They were tired and all drugged out, and Van Halen was hungry, and they were young.
Yeah.
And they were the fury, man.
It's weird when you see things like that. So then a few years after that, I think ZZ Top were headlining at the same festival a few years later, and Bon Jovi I think they'd released their first album, and they stole the show. You can sometimes tell these bands that are going to come up in like world domination. You can see it really early, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, to me, Bon Jovi is ZZ Top. I mean, I'll take ZZ Top any day.
Me too.
But,
Me too. Yeah.
But I understand the Bon Jovi appeal.
Yeah.
I mean, I got it. I understood the popularity of the songs, man, and that right there is what you're talking about. Right there is a very classic thing, because music changes drastically.
Yeah.
Soon after that, when Nirvana comes, man, it changes the game.
Yeah, well, Zack and I were just talking before we came on air with you. We said that very same thing about, your kind of career kind of finished, and obviously you said things were changing, and it was probably all the grunge stuff that kind of came around, and that was kind of just the whole thing changed, because all then the kind of the poodle rock, or whatever you want to call it, that kind of was seen as old-fashioned, wasn't it? And it was
really. I mean, listen. I mean, I was in it. I was in that.
Yeah.
It was super. It was really horseshit. It was super pretentious. You know what I mean? in some ways, you know what I mean. It had a lot of artifice. Yeah. Except with the exception that a lot of those guys could really play well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you had guys, that could really play, man. Really play. Rudy Zarzo was in a couple of those bands, but that guy's a staggering musician.
Yeah, yeah.
He's just a brilliant bass player. So, and those guys continued to have careers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the guys that were all the artifice that just sort of went away, man. They went away. Got like bands like Poison, and that I don't even know what that was. I mean, listen. I'm sorry if I'm being brutally honest, but
Go for it. No, go for it.
I'll tell you how I feel about shit.
What about? I think last night I actually caught. I think it was your first ever TV performance. Correct me if I'm wrong. Tales from the Crypt. Was that your first?
Yeah.
Role.
Yeah.
Now, which you played, obviously, member of a rock band.
Can I just ask that was the role in the Tales from the Crypt essentially an over-shoulder documentary from when you was a rocker in the
80s? You know what? That's a good question. I'll tell you secretly. I was able to use some stuff in there for that character with a couple of lead singers that I'd worked with that had those kinds of egos. You know what I mean? But if you look closely, the bass player in the band, which is called
Exorcist, but William Freaklin, yeah,
is Rudy Zarzo.
Is it? Oh my God, I didn't notice that. Oh man.
Well, I called Rudy. I go, hey man, I'm doing this. He goes, you got to come and be the fucking bass player in the band. He's like, and he had a band at the time called Sun King.
Yeah.
That doing, and he came and did it. I was just honored. I was flattered. I mean, Rudy, that's a guy you should have on the show.
All right.
That guy will talk to you. I mean, what has Rudy not lived through? If you think he was on the bus when when the plane crashed, man.
Yeah, no, man, yeah.
Rudy has stories that I like to sit with Rudy sometimes. They just let him talk.
Well,
I hear him talk for hours.
I would be more than happy if you just say to Rudy, look, there's these guys over in Scotland, and send him my way, man, because I would love to hear his stories.
I'll connect you guys on Twitter.
Oh, man, it's so cool. I was watching it last night, so I was watching this episode last night, and no word of a lie, there's the scene where you're with a lady on the bed, as it were, and I do. That wasn't a stunt ass double? That was you, was it? With
Was it what?
That wasn't a stunt ass double there on the bed. That was definitely you.
No, that was me, man. Yeah, brother, that was me. That's so uncomfortable, man.
I can imagine.
I mean, you're
really awful.
How many people on a scene like that? How many people are stood staring?
Well, there's not. There's only a couple of people in the room because it's a closed set, but nonetheless, it's still. It's a really bizarre thing to do, man.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I've had to be naked like that, fully naked in a theater.
Wow,
like an 800-seat house, doing a play. Brother, let me tell you something. The first time you stand on stage in front of 800 people with your willy out, man.
Well, the first thing that I would have done is turn the heating all the way up.
And make sure it's not too cold.
That's what you want to do because, what happens, stuff runs for its life, man. You know what I mean? Stuff runs for its life, but it's I tell you, those moments they build character. They build something.
Especially when Tales from the Crypt was like, one of your early roles. It's not as if you were experienced then. It's one of your first couple of roles, and you're having to get naked on camera and all this stuff.
Crazy, man. But I was terrified, man. I was terrified, and I was terrified and in awe of Billy Friedkin. Who I became friends with then. We communicate on Twitter, once in a while, and he was a guy that I admired tremendously. I mean, I was a very new actor. I think that was I'll tell you exactly, that was my third job as an actor.
Yeah.
And I'm thrust, and it was the lead, and they would not see me for that because that was a very prestigious show at the time.
Yeah.
And they would only cast stars and star directors and they wouldn't because I was nobody.
Yeah.
And Holly Levitt, my agent that I spoke about earlier, convinced them to see me. They said, "You don't understand. This is the guy. He was in a band. She sent videos or whatever." And they agreed to see me, and I went and I read for Billy, and Billy basically cast me in the room. He's like, "You're the fucking guy, man." Yeah. And a bunch of guys wanted that. A bunch of rock star guys wanted that. Yeah. Because it just made, and it was in L.A. It just made perfect sense. It just made perfect sense. And I wound up getting it. I mean, I always say that, I don't want to use the word luck because luck I think implies that no hard work has gone into it. But I've been very fortunate, and I'm very grateful for it all. And my friend Mitch Horowitz, who's on Twitter, you might ask me, he does a thing. He has a thing on his phone. He has a moment of prayer every day, and I got that idea from him, and I set my phone a couple of years ago. It says moment of gratitude.
Wow, okay.
I have a reminder that goes off, and literally whatever's going on, it just sort of, it snaps me back into like, hey man, just relax, you're okay, just be grateful. And I try to be grateful for the whole ride, man. I try not to take anything for granted.
Sure,
man.
yeah.
I don't. I came from Cuba with my mother. My mother worked at a grocery store, man. My mother didn't speak English, and it was, she made her, she raised her kids and so I have that immigrant work mentality,
Yeah.
I'll work harder than anybody, man. I'll work till I fucking drop dead.
So, I mean, it's a career that essentially, I mean, you can do until you do drop dead. I mean, in terms of acting, it's one of those things that can go on forever, can't it? I guess. Who are your acting inspirations? Who inspired you in terms of an actor? You mentioned Montgomery Clift. I believe he was an inspiration.
Montgomery Clift is a huge one of my idols, man. Probably my number one guy. I love Peter Sellers.
You mentioned him on Twitter. Was it the other day you tweeted about Sellers, and I think you'd seen a couple of the scenes and you put some stuff out, and it was like, oh god, yeah.
Yeah, Peter Sellers is, you know, he's a guy. I mean, I never, you know, I own everything Peter Sellers ever did, including the Ealing comedies. And it's funny, I was in Ealing Studios in London, and I had them, and I said to the guy, I said, "You take me, show me where a lot of these were made." And the guy took me to the studio. You know,
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, you know, Peter Sellers was in here. It's crazy, man. So Peter Sellers, you know, I loved. You know, I like, you know, I loved, you know, obviously I loved De Niro and Pacino, you know, but those guys, you know, J.T. Walsh, she's an actor I love. Tilda Swinton, you know, I'm a kind of an outsider. I follow certain cats that are maybe not these huge stars, but are to me are doing the real stuff. Like what I believe what real acting is, you know. Ben Mendelsohn is a guy that on The Outsider is a guy that I admire tremendous. Bill Camp's another guy in there I admire tremendously. You know, so you know it's you know, there's a lot of people I love. I don't have those sort of maybe typical I don't know, actors that people love or something. But you know, there's a great Indian actor called Irfan Khan that I think is brilliant. You know, I'd love to work with him. I'd love to work with Andrew Arnold.
Yeah.
And you know, those are the things that really that are attractive to me, man. These great small films and you know.
Have you ever?
Stuff that my agent goes, oh yeah, things that pay no money. You know.
Have you ever had a moment in a film? Maybe you haven't. I don't know. But where you acted with somebody who's been maybe, I don't know, either a big name or just a hero or something, and you thought, crying out loud, I'm acting with so and so here. Particularly in your early days, maybe. Did you ever feel overawed, or is it something you just felt, no, this is me, you know, where I should be?
You know, I mean, I've had moments. You know, I don't. It's weird, man. I had a moment with David Morse, who's another one of those guys. That's one of my heroes.
He's a great actor. Really underrated, I think. Yeah.
He's incredible actor.
Yeah.
Incredible actor. I mean, that's as good as, you know. But that's what I'm talking about. Guys like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not Tom Cruise, but he's so good. Man. It's crazy when you watch the work. And I got this job. And I was going to play his partner, and I literally the first day, I was like, and, you know, and he's very tall.
Yeah, he's a huge guy, isn't he? Yeah. He's
kind of an imposing figure, you know, and he's very intense man, you know. But you know, and I can say this now because he's a great friend of mine now, and he, you know, but I literally walked the first day. I said to him, "Man, can I talk to you a second?" And I put my hand out. I go, "I'm Yul. I'm playing so and so." And he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I was like, I'm just gonna say this now. I gotta say it, and I'm not gonna say it again. I've always dreamed of working with you, man. Your career is the kind of career that I want to have.
Yeah.
Man. That's the career that I aspire to. And he's just looking at me. You know, he's just looking at me, man. Really dead quiet, man. He's staring at me like he's like, where's this going with this guy? You know. And I'm just going on. And I said, he goes, I just want to say it now, and I'm not going to say it again. And he goes, okay, great. And then I was like, oh, I'm an idiot. What did I just do? And then we just started, man. And we did, you know, I was with him a lot. We did this TV show together, you know, and we had I love that guy. And I kept, we were shooting in New Orleans, and I kept telling him I was going to talk him into taking a pedicab ride with me. You know, and he's like, "That's not going to happen, you." I'm like, "You'll see." And then by the end of the thing, he said, "I just want to tell you, if anybody could possibly talk me into a pedicab ride, it's you." You know, oh man, that's amazing. You know,
he's what I would call one of those actors that, you know, people say, oh, you know. You'd say the name and they go, who? And then you look at him and go, oh my God. I mean, his work, his body of work is incredible. I mean, The Green Mile, he was brilliant in, you know. Tom Hanks got plaudits, but he was great.
No, he's incredible, man. He's incredible. He's incredible in the Von Trier movies. I don't know if you ever see, if you see them.
Yeah.
Oh man, he's just unreal, man. I mean, he's just unreal. I mean, some of my work with him is some of my favorite things I've done. I worked with Chris Cooper, who I just saw the other day actually in the Philippines, and that was kind of intimidating. But he's again a really lovely guy. And it's funny, Russell Crowe on American Gangster was when I first went to work on that movie. I hadn't met anybody, and I remember my first day. He walked right up to me and put his hand out and said, "Hey, mate, I'm Russell." Like, he totally welcomed me. Yeah. So he was like, "Yo, you're part of the team. Let's go, man." And he took away all that, fear or whatever, because you don't know. But I'll tell you the truth, man. A lot of these guys that are that good, these big guys that are that good, they're usually the nicest guys. Yeah. It's the fucking posers, man. That put on all the airs and put on all the nonsense. You know what I mean? And I work with those too. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and I'm working with that guy and thinking, man, you're so bad at your job that it's terrifying. You know what I mean? And you don't even know it, because that's how stupid you are.
Could I ask you about? Did you see the Golden Globes a few weeks ago with Ricky Gervais?
Yeah.
What can I ask your opinion on? Because I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was great. What
Gervais?
it did. Yeah.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I thought it was great, man. I thought it was great. I thought he took the piss out of everything. I was like, that's what you're supposed. Life is too short, man. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, come on. And if you can't do that in front of that crowd, and those are the people you want to do it to sometimes. Because there's so much material. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's crazy what's going on. So he just kind of went for it. You know what I mean? And I was like, I didn't have any issue with it, man. I think people are too overly sensitive about shit these days. I don't believe in censoring. I don't believe in any kind of censorship.
Really?
I believe it's your decision.
Okay.
It's your decision to tune in or tune out, or don't watch it. Watch it. Protect your kids. I don't have kids, but if you have kids, then be a fucking parent. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because my kids is exposing my kids. Well, then there's. Because I'll tell you, in my house, there was one law. And it was my mother, and there was no negotiation. I see kids negotiating with parents now. Yeah. There's no negotiation in my house, man. There was one law, and there was one sheriff, and that was it. And you didn't question it. Yeah. So I don't believe in censoring Ricky or any of those things. I believe that those people should do what they want, and it's up to the people to tune in or tune out or give their opinion about it or not.
And I think we could probably say your mum did a good job, considering you're a massive Hollywood actor. So everyone knows what she's doing.
I don't know about massive, but I think my mother is proud. I think she's looking down and she's going, "Hey, man, you did all right. You did all right." My mother never. My mother left Cuba. My dad stayed in Cuba. My dad was an OBGYN surgeon, and there was never any pressure for any of us to go into medicine, neither my sister or me. And my mother supported all my artistic ideas, man. From buying me a drum kit when I was 6. Just imagine buying a 6-year-old a fucking drum kit, man. Can you imagine that din?
Maybe she wasn't that smart. Maybe it was just that was one of the mistakes you made.
It was like, you want to play drums? Like, let's go. Like we got a drum kit. I mean, it was crazy, man. And then I switched to guitar when I was like 12. Because when I heard Jimmy Page, literally like it froze me. I was like, I'm sorry, what is that? And then I was like, oh no, that's where I'm going, dude. I'm going there. Then it was like everything I needed to do. I got a job. I bought a guitar. I got $90 together. But before that, my grandmother had bought me this guitar we had like a 5 and dime store called Woolworth. It was $18. She bought me this guitar, and I was like, which is just action was terrible, and but I was like, if you want to play, you're gonna play. You don't care what the guitar's like. If you're determined, that's why, somebody said to me the other day, hey man, my kid's a guitar player, he's in a band, but a couple of guys in the band moved far away. Now it's too far away. Now he's like, it's kind of far away to go rehearse. And I said, guess what? Your kid doesn't want to be in a band. But if you want to be in a band, nothing's too far to rehearse.
Right, yeah.
because you want to be in a band. You know what I mean? You want to play guitar or bass or whatever. I mean, so you're gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing is going to deter you from that.
In terms of before we talk about The Outsider, if that's okay, I just want to talk in general in terms of some of your roles. You played quite a few kind of real life characters. I think in Captain Phillips, you played the commander. In
Captain Castellano. Commander Castellano.
Did you meet him beforehand?
Yeah, I met him and his family.
Yeah, was it important? Was it important to do that, to meet him first? I mean, what was the basis of doing something like that?
That's a great question. That's a tricky deal because sometimes you're better off not meeting the guy.
Sure.
Right? In this case, it was incredible because his demeanor, his nature, was insanely gentle.
Yeah.
And yet, he's a commander of a Navy destroyer. So they don't give that job to just some noob. You know what I mean? They don't just hand those out like party favors. I mean, and I think now, in fact, I've been invited. He invites me to. I think he's a commander of a fleet now.
Wow.
I mean, he's one of he's a career guy.
Yeah.
He grew up in Bellport, Long Island, and he told me, he goes, I knew from when I was very young that that's what I wanted to do. He grew up by the water. He knew he was going to go to Naval Academy. Everything was like, I'm going to go to Naval Academy. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. And that's what he did. And I met him, and I met his family, and his wife, and his children, and it taught me a lot. I learned a lot about him and them, and I watched him. I watched him interact with them, and how he interacted with me, and how he was, he was super. He wasn't like, hey, he was super sort of kind of soft spoken.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And kind of gentle, man, but you knew he meant business. You know what I mean? So in that particular case, it was actually it was very, very helpful. It was a little terrifying to do the part in front of him. Sometimes.
So he was there. He was kind of like an observer, advisor type thing.
Yeah. Yeah, he came. I mean, the thing, that portion of the movie was supposed to shoot on a stage in Malta, and the movie gets very, very lucky, and they get an actual ship.
Yeah.
The Navy agrees and gives them a ship, and so they retool, and instead of Malta, now we're going to Virginia Beach, and we're on the ship, man, and we would, on the days that I wasn't shooting, I would, Paul wanted me to, I would put on the uniform and I would hang out with the officers of that ship, and I would eat with them, and I would just sort of observe them, and because I don't know if you know anything about how the way Paul Greengrass works, but the script that you're given, you soon learn is a document of complete fiction. Real script is in his pocket and in his head. So you think you're gonna go, you have an idea, and then he's like, so here's what we're gonna do, and you're like, wait, what? And then you rehearse an hour for like an hour. You go through this for and the takes are long.
Yeah.
The entire film mags run out. He doesn't cut, man. Because he's looking for these sort of gems.
Yeah.
And it's a terrifying and incredible way to work. And I remember Tom Hanks saying to me, he saw me before I started. He goes, did you start yet? I go, no. He goes, oh. Get ready. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, oh man, it's these long takes and cut. And you're like, what are we going to do? And there's no blocking. You can literally go anywhere. You can go anywhere. And then the cinematographer, Barry Ackroyd, the DP, and Paul have this amazing telepathy, and Barry shoots like all of Paul's movies. So Barry's like really right on your neck, and you can go anywhere. You know what I mean? And just it's crazy. Yeah. Sometimes all the freedom in the world is a terrifying thing. You mean it's like kids love parameters because they're like parameters are love in a way. And they're like, well, you can do anything. And I'm like, no. But I said at the end, I said, "Hey, man, I want to tell you something. You took me to graduate school here." He goes, "No, mate, no." I go, "No, man, you did, man, you did," and I thank you for that. Paul's amazing, man. I would do. I would walk into the fire for that guy.
Yeah. I had a couple of messages while you were just telling me about that. Kathy Perrell from Halifax just said she wants to say hi to the Rev. So Midnight Texas, all that stuff. The Rev, man.
Texas.
Said hi to the Rev. Neil Johnson, who's a filmmaker friend of ours, does a lot of sci-fi stuff. He worked with Rhapsody of Fire and did a lot of music videos. Said, ask Yul anything about War of the Worlds. So I've got to ask you about War of the Worlds.
Yeah, War of the Worlds. I mean, that was shot. I was on that film for like, I think 3 weeks. It was a very, I'm in a beginning sequence of the film. I didn't meet anybody. I was offered that.
Yeah.
See if I'm remembering correctly. So I was offered that, and they're like, again, the script was very secret. And that, so I literally only had my lines. Everything else was like, redacted.
Right.
So crazy. So I knew what my lines were, and then, but my first day, literally, I walk on set, and the AD goes, "Hey, Yul, I'm so this is Steven, Spielberg. This is Tom." I go, "Hey," I literally shake their hands, and then Spielberg goes, "Great, so here's what we're going to do. You guys were walking, and we just, there's no time to even go, what's just happened?" You know what I mean? Because there just isn't. You have to get to work. And the thing is, nobody's waiting for me to warm up at work. I need to show up and do it. You know what I mean? It's like, when you're those big guys, everybody, the world revolves around you. You know what I mean? It's like, the world doesn't really revolve around me, man. You know what I mean? And plus I wouldn't want it to. It's not how I function. It's not how I work. I don't like, but sometimes you just there's no time. You just got to jump in.
Do you watch yourself back on? Can you watch yourself on screen? Because I spoke to some actors who simply cannot, watch themselves. Do you watch yourself back? I don't generally watch. I'll watch something if I have to attend a premiere, so I know what I know what I'm walking into. Yeah. And I'll watch it once if it's a film or something. I don't watch. I'm watching The Outsider because my wife really wants to see it, so we've been watching it. But I've had a link for it with a bunch of episodes that I didn't even look at it. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I don't. The thing is, I don't mind. I like watching a playback at work. Yeah. Because then I can make an adjustment. But after the fact, it's very there's a strange thing that happens, because there's a memory. I have a memory of being there and making the thing. Yeah. That lives only within me. The audience doesn't have that memory. So when I watch something, I cannot divorce myself of the memory of that memory, and usually sometimes the memory is better than the product. So that's always so sad when that happens, but it can happen.
It's funny. John Lennon said the same thing when he was asked about did he ever listen back to any of the Beatles stuff, and he went, no, because all I can remember is the fights or the problems making this or the memory of doing this. That's kind of more powerful than the music,
Yeah. And here's an interesting thing, the takes they use aren't always the best takes. They're whatever serves the narrative of the people cutting it or however they want it to look. And sometimes it's not the best take. And there's nothing you can do about that. I was talking to a young actor, and it's out of your hands. You know what I mean? So much of this is out of your hands. Yeah. You know what I mean? So all you can do is go to work, put your best foot forward, have a great attitude, and then you got to go home and you got to forget about it because it's out of you've now handed it over to 75 people who are all deciding the fate of this thing. You know what I mean? I mean, the decision-making process is literally 75 people and their assistants will weigh in about some idiotic thing. And that's just the way it is. You know what I mean?
You mentioned The Outsider. Obviously, we need to talk about that because it's something that Zack and I have talked about a lot. So you've got this Stephen King adaptation. You've got the likes of Ben Mendelsohn, Jason Bateman. I mean, that's enough to entice you. Did you know the book beforehand? Were you familiar with Stephen King's work?
I didn't know the book beforehand. I read the book after. This was, I only knew a couple of things so I had to go and audition for this one. So I went, and I had the sides were amazing. Like the scenes I had were incredible.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is really, and I think all I knew was that it was Ben Mendelsohn and Jason Bateman.
Yeah.
I knew Jason was directing, and I knew I wasn't quite sure who he was playing, but because I only had some sides. I didn't have all the material. You know what I mean? But I love Jason Bateman, and I love Ben Mendelsohn. So. And then when I find out who else is involved, Julianne Nicholson and Mara Winningham and Bill Camp, and I was like, wait, hold on a second, man. And then Igor Martinovich was going to shoot it, the guy, and then it was Richard Price. I mean, just we started unpacking this thing, and I was like, it was amazing because it was like, it's one of the greatest things I've ever been a part of. I mean, it is such a quality product.
Yeah.
Soup to nuts. It's like it's shot beautifully, and it's shot in a very unique way that is not the traditional television, cinematography where you have 2 shot in a master and 2 singles. It's shot in a very interesting way.
Yeah.
Because you had a guy in Bateman that was allowed to sort of set that tonally because of who he is,
yeah.
And you want to give a guy like that power because he's going to do something cool with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
he's a creative guy. He's been doing this since he was a child.
Yeah, Zack and I have loved the pacing of it, haven't we, Zack? In terms of the the pacing of this, it's kind of slow paced, but it's so atmospheric, and it feels you got these characters.
And it drip feeds you information. Per episode, it's just a little bit of progression, but it's kind of what's enjoyable about it is the stuff in between. The acting is sublime, like you said. The cinematography is on point, and it's just a case where each episode just drips you a little bit of information that you really need to see the next one. You can't stop.
That's right. Well, it's I mean, the guy who did the adaptation is a brilliant guy, Richard Price. I mean, the writers on this are Richard Price and Dennis Lehane. Is about as good as it gets, man. You know what I mean? It's like, so you have this great book by a great writer adapted by these amazing screenwriter guys. I mean, Richard Price, who did The Night Of, and he's I mean, again, it's as good as it gets. So it's. You hedge your bets and then you hope for the best, man. At the end of the day, fellas, it's a roll of the dice. That's really what it is.
So how much for you to tell us how it ends then? Can to spill the beans, man?
How it ends?
Yeah, go on. Just just.
I'd be in so much trouble.
I know, right? I know.
I mean, if you read the book, you know how it ends. So,
yeah. Well, they've taken as many adaptations do. They've taken a slight deviation from the book in some ways, because I think what we found interesting was when Holly did the grand sort of her explanation about what she thought was going on about an episode or 2 ago. Your character was the only one, I think, that kind of said, maybe she'd got something here. Because obviously with your background, you talked about your character's background, about El Cuco and that sort of thing. In the book, I think they were far more welcoming to her story, I seem to remember, than it was in the episode, weren't they? So
yeah, I think Sablo is the guy. And I was explaining to those guys, because I said, culturally, Sablo. you know, because there's too much is unexplained here. And even though this guy's an investigator, he's, you know, I think in the last episode I said to Ben, I said, you know, you want this thing to make sense, and I just want it to fucking end. I'm gonna try it. Let's go. What if she is right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know. So, I think Sabo is the guy who's like, I think, you know, he's looking at her going like, man, maybe this is it.
Yeah.
Maybe she, you know, because a lot of stuff just doesn't add up, man. You know, and from an investigative standpoint, you're like, fingerprints in 2 different locations at the same time. I mean, it's beautifully, you know, it's beautifully crafted story, man.
It is, and like Zack said, you know, the way it looks. I mean, the acting, it's an ensemble piece, and the acting for, and, you know, and I'm not just saying this because I'm talking to you, because you know, you're excellent, but the whole, there's not one weak link, and that's unusual, because usually there's maybe 1 or 2 parts that maybe don't resonate, but everybody just absolutely nails it, you know.
Well, you know, Jason was very careful in the casting of this.
Yeah.
You know, and he, you know, I mean, it's kind of handpicked. You know what I mean? It's you know, every part is carefully scrutinized. So, you know, again, it's like, it's just a dream to be a part of such a cast. I mean, acting with Ben and those, you know, Jeremy Bob is awesome. He's a buddy of mine. And Mark Menchaca, who you should probably have on this, he's fun. He's fun.
He messaged me last night, basically saying when I kind of tagged him into the thing that's in the European, and he said, I can't remember exactly what he said now, but he said, oh, you know, Yul's a great guy, you'll be great on the show and stuff. So I've actually asked Mark to come on in the future, so if I can get Mark on, that'd be great, because I think
you love Mark. That's awesome, man.
That part that he plays with kind of heart. You kind of feel sorry for somebody who you know is going to do something quite terrible, you know. So I've got to apologise, because we're kind of.
There's a wonderful British actor on called Paddy Considine.
Yeah. Plays a nightclub.
I mean, again, you know, I mean, that's Bateman, man. He wanted, like, you know, it's crazy, you know, Paddy, you know, it's soup to nuts. You know, the people in the nuts.
We've slightly run over. Slightly ran over time. I do apologise for keeping you so long. We've just got a few things at the end to ask you about. We put together a little quiz, okay? Which what did you call it, Zack? You gave it a name for the quiz.
It's you'll never get this.
You'll never get this. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. So we've got 10 questions. You might get them. You might not. Okay. So the first one. Okay. Yul Vasquez, ex-lead singer of Diving for Pills. You wrote, I think you co-wrote a song, All She Wants to Do, for Diving for Pills, yeah. Can you finish the lines of this song? So, all she wants to do is dance, take a chance on a wild romance. Go on, you finish.
I remember the song vaguely. By the way, I was the guitar player, not the singer.
You're down as a co-writer, my friend. You're down as a.
Well, I think I'm a co-writer on the song. All she wants to do, take a I don't know, you know, put on some pants.
Pretty close. Turn me on with a glance, turn me on, baby. That's the rest of the lines there. So there you go.
Oh wow! I mean. Those are some deep lyrics.
I know, man. I know, right?
My friend, that's some poetry right there.
Dylan's got nothing on that one.
No, not at all.
Zack, have you got a question?
According to IMDb, how many credits do you have?
Acting credits.
Acting credits.
You don't know?
I don't know.
See, I told you.
If you was to guess, how many did you think?
70? I don't know.
111.
111 acting credits. I know, right? You've been busy, man.
That's amazing. Wow, I literally have. I don't know. Are you sure they're all me?
Look, IMDb doesn't lie. It says 111, so there we go. Question 3. The Infiltrator. So you played Javier Ospina, sorry. You were shot to death on the dance floor, I believe, of a club. What song were you dancing to at the time when you were shot?
Oh man, I don't remember. I don't remember. I remember that club. That club is in London. We shot that in London.
Really? Oh man, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't remember, man. I don't remember.
Tell him,
What
Zack.
is it?
Tell him, Zack. Go on.
I Can't Wait by New Shoes.
Well, perfect song.
Well, which is awkward about that, though, because the film was set in 1985, but the song wasn't actually released till 1986.
Well, there you go.
Well, you know, you should have Brad Furman on here. You should get Brad Furman who directed them. I've done 3 films with him. He's a big music guy. Music is a huge part of his. So he probably didn't even care. You know what I mean? He just was like, you know, I like this. It fits for my thing.
Come on, Zack. Next question. Question 4.
You've been married to actress Linda Larkin since 2002.
Just in case you didn't know. Just in case you weren't aware.
Just in case you didn't know.
Thanks for reminding me.
Do you know when your anniversary is?
Yeah, of course. Oh. Sure, it's the 18th of May.
Well done.
Yeah.
So you passed, that's okay.
I know that. Yeah, 18th of May. Yeah, that's easy. Yeah. And I know her birthday, and I know mine. Oh. They're all 18s.
Oh.
Well, that's helpful then.
Very easy to remember then.
I'm 3/18. She's 7/18, and we're married on 5/18.
Did you plan that so it was all easy to remember?
Well, 18 is an important number for us. So yeah.
Okay. In Chinese astrology, what is your animal? Do you know?
Am I the pig?
Apparently you're a wood snake. I don't know where I found that out from, but you're a snake, apparently.
A snake?
A wood snake or something, yeah.
Wow.
I think we might have seen that in Tales from a Crypt.
Yes, you did.
I think one of the lines in
one.
I think one of the lines that you quoted in that was, "Did you want to see my snake?" I think that was one of your lines.
Right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
We've actually got a couple of questions here from the chat.
Okay, go on then. Yeah.
We've got Miguel is a Magic City fan. Hi Miguel, how you doing? He's asked if Yul has worked with anyone from the outsider before.
Yes, Jeremy Bob. Jeremy Bob and I did Russian Doll together, and I technically worked with Ben Mendelsohn because I did Bloodline, but I never had a scene with Ben.
Okay.
So, you know, but I did have scenes with Jeremy Bob in Russian Doll.
Okay.
We've got another one here from Bing 1989. It says Yul has taken a lot of inspiration from England/English pop culture. So I think it was from when you mentioned Irfan Khan earlier and Peter Sellers and things.
Yeah.
Is that just by chance, or is there anything that you would kind of reflect upon British-wise?
I mean, I told you earlier, all my heroes as a kid were British guitar players, man. You know, yeah. I was a Cuban kid that wished he was British, you know, and that, you know, everything I wanted, I'm such an Anglophile. I mean, you know, everything I loved was from England. You know what I mean? The clothes, the music, the guitar players. I mean, it was crazy, you know. And there was another kid that he passed away that I knew, who's Cuban, who played like Eric Clapton. He loved Clapton. I mean, and it was amazing. You watch this Cuban kid, and he was fucking Clapton. I mean, so you know the British influence. I don't need to tell you guys is huge, man. You know, it's huge.
Yeah.
And everything I loved, man, all the music I loved, what I wanted to do, even more important than what I loved, was colored by Great Britain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Any more questions, Zack? Have you got any more that you want to throw our way?
No, that's it.
I've got two more for you. Basically, you voiced the character of Armando Mendez in the what was that? Grand Theft Auto Vice City Stories. Yep.
Right, yeah.
What weapon was your character holding when you were killed?
A cheese grater?
Close.
No idea.
You are that's so close. You were wielding a flamethrower for some reason, which I don't know.
I don't know if the person asking the question knows. When you go do that, you're reading the lines.
Yeah.
And there's a camera that's set up that records literally like the shapes that your mouth makes. So I never saw the thing afterwards. I've never played a video game. I don't. Well, that's not true. I used to love Galaga.
Okay, all right.
But I've never played any of those sort of really advanced graphics video games. I think if I went down that rabbit hole, I wouldn't come back, man.
Well, I think it's safe to say that in the quiz, apart from your wife, which is probably lucky, that was the one thing that you were correct with. You really failed miserably on the rest of the quiz. So you know what.
I did. Yeah, do you know who my wife is though?
I do indeed. Yeah, Jasmine. Yeah. So.
I am married to a Disney princess.
My granddaughter would be thrilled and will be thrilled when I tell her, because she's obsessed with all the Disney films and all that. Yeah. So she's going through that at the moment now. So she loves that stuff, you know. So
it's crazy. The kids go nuts, and she still does it. She's still, you know, ongoing thing. This thing, you know, it's. But yeah, she is a bona fide Disney legend, like with the handprints and the Disney. You go on the Disney lot, there's a thing with her handprints.
Wow.
And it's crazy. It's crazy. You know, the Disney princesses are and there's only a handful of them.
Yeah.
You know, they're Disney royalty. It's unbelievable.
Well, listen, we've taken a bit more time than we planned, so I genuinely appreciate the time that you've taken. I've got about 100 more questions that I could have asked, which we're not going to have time for now.
We'll do it again, man.
Let's do a part 2.
100%.
Yul Vasquez part 2.
Absolutely, man. We'll do a part 2. It was. I got to tell you, this was a lot of fun, man.
Cool.
You guys were really great.
Cool.
At the end of the day, that's all we can ask for is to have a few yucks and having time, man.
A few laughs, yeah. So, listen, you enjoy the rest of your day, man. Wish you best of luck in everything that you do.
Stuart, you froze on me.
I'm back. Are you still there?
You're back.
Yeah, we've got storms over here, so I think the connections are kind of going off and on. So, listen, man, you take care. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for spending time with us. It's been great.
The pleasure's mine, my friend.
All right,
I'll talk
man.
to you soon.
Okay.
Thank you, Yul.
You take care, man. Okay.
Cheers.
Okay, is that stop there, Zack? Cool.
Yes.
Oh man, thanks. That was great. That was really cool. So.
Man. Thank you guys very much. That was really fun, man.
Yeah, I totally enjoyed it.
That was cool.
That was great. And you know, if you're up for a part 2 at some point, let us know, and we'll do one sometime in the future.
Yeah, totally. And you know, especially on weekends, you know, whatever. Just whenever you guys want to do it, I mean, just let me know. I'm
that'd be cool.
Here, I have to go to LA and do reshoots on this movie that I have coming out in October. This horror movie. But I'm around. Let me know, man, and and I'll just let me know when you put this up, and I'll retweet it, and.
Cool. Yeah. Well, we should be. We'll probably be putting it out maybe in the next couple of days. It won't be too long at all. So I'll message you when that's done. Okay.
No worries.
All right.
No worries.
You take care, man. All right.
Take care, fellas.
Okay. All right, man.
All
right, bye. Bye.